Floodwaters rising, but the Brisbane River peak has been downgraded.
We are now seeing thousands of homes inundated with water up to the roof, many more expecting to see significant water damage.
Residents work throughout the night to protect their homes.
Hundreds flee to Brisbane's evacuation centres seeking refuge from the rising waters.
All the surrounding streets around our house were pretty much inundated, so we had about half an hour to get out.
The water begins to fall in Ipswich, where a third of the town was inundated.
Good morning. It's Thursday the 13th of January. I'm Mary Gearin.
And I'm Waleed Aly. Welcome to this special flood edition of ABC News Breakfast. As we go to air, the Brisbane River is expected to be reaching its peak. It's now been revised down to 4.6 metres. That's more than a metre shy of the devastating peak in 1974.
But the damage is widespread and tens of thousands of homes have already been flooded. For the latest, Lisa Miller joins us now from the Brisbane suburb of Kangaroo Point. And Lisa, you're on the banks of the river there. What's it looking like this morning?
Well, not so much looking, Mary, because as you can tell, it's still very dark, but the noise is quite extraordinary. Friends of mine have also said throughout the evening that they could hear the river raging past them. That massive amount of water makes a huge amount of noise, and that's only added to the anxiety that people have been feeling. In fact, even though it's only 4 a.m. here in Brisbane, there's been quite a crowd that have turned up on the Kangaroo Point cliffs here to have a look, to see what was going on, to see how much of the river has been rising. And certainly looking down on it, you can see a big amount of debris going through, and that's been one of the worries, certainly only one of the worries for people throughout the evening. But as you say, the first bit of good news for everyone was the fact that it had been, the levels had been downgraded, because we had that initial estimate of 5.5, which was going to make it the worst flood ever, more than the 1974 flood. Then it was downgraded to 4.9. Now they're suggesting 4.6. So the morning has started with a little bit of good news, but still an amazing amount of anxiety for the people of Brisbane, because they know this is going to be quite an extraordinary day, Mary.
I was going to say it should be good news, of course, in a limited way, but how much will it feel like good news, do you think, to the people of Brisbane right now?
Well, Mary, they're not going to know, given that the peak is going to stay at that level when it reaches it for about 12 hours. It's going to take a while to see just how many houses might have been spared. They're suggesting that every time they lower the estimate, that thousands of homes might be spared from flooding, but really no one's going to know until the river reaches its peak and then it starts going down, and they can have a look at the damage. They can see just how many homes were affected. So of course the little bit of good news, but still, you know, this is still quite an extraordinary event. You think about it, we've got thousands of people who've been put into evacuation centres. We've got 250,000 businesses and homes that are without electricity. This is the CBD behind me, which is normally at this time of night bright with lights. In fact, when I was driving here, Mary, most of the lights on the Story Bridge were off. Traffic lights were working, but certainly it was a dark city, and one that I know people say it looks like a ghost town, but the roads were very quiet and not a lot of people around, although there are certainly a few people who have been gathering here to have a look. But you think about the evacuations, the electricity, not knowing the people in the evacuation centres. I was there at the main headquarters at the RNA Showgrounds, which is where the Brisbane Ekka is normally held. Well, there are over 1,000 people there. When I was there last night, people were talking to me about having already gone through floods before in their lifetime, so knowing what might be ahead, and that was probably even worse for them, because they've had to clean out houses before, they've had to get through the mud, they've had to discover that they've lost so many of their possessions, and of course they were turning up at these evacuation centres with just small bags, their children, some of them brought their pets, but otherwise they've had to just get out of their homes, many of them told to get out by police because they were refusing to go. They wanted to stay, especially those areas around West End. There were people in apartment buildings who thought that because they were up higher that they could stay. So the police have certainly had to move a lot of people out.